So, did you know Pixar released another film? Yes, it did. I mean, most of you probably didn't know because they didn't talk about it. Just let it out into the void. But yep, its name is Elio or something along those lines. And from what I've heard, I haven't watched it, but from what I've heard, it's a bit incoherent and it's. I'm going to circle around back to it, but I want to talk about what happened to Disney. Like, how did it get this bad? They are about to re-release some Endgame, and I think you could probably guess why. They gotta get some money because they ain't making it. They ain't making it enough. But let's just start from the beginning. So Disney was, at least at one point, very well liked. I mean, personally, I liked it, and a lot of people, liked its films. I mean, obviously, it was, a corporation. It was always a corporation. That's never been hidden. But the fact is, it still made good movies. Like, if you look at the original movies, the older ones, it's pretty impressive that every single frame of them movies was hand drawn. That was the most impressive part of it. But it's just that time just isn't now anymore. It's just gone. Even with Pixar, the original Toy Story was released in 1999. It's like 25 years old at this point. And honestly, if when I rewatch it, because I every so often rewatch these movies because they were so good, I wouldn't guess it would be, 1999 era because it doesn't look that bad. It looks pretty good. And that's what you can say about most of the Pixar movies. They're pretty good looking, but the most important part of these two movies was their story. That what held it together. And then there was Marvel, which is also under Disney now. Marvel, for the past 20 years almost, it started creating movies in around about in the early 2000s, and up till Endgame, around about 2019 2020ish, it was going strong. But then, straight after Endgame, it just jumped off a cliff. Not to say that, there weren't good movies somewhere in their catalog, maybe. And there were good shows somewhere in their catalog, kind of, maybe, sure. I just stopped watching after that. Like, I watched maybe a few movies and a few shows, but honestly, I just couldn't care less because they were the problem with all of these studios is that they started pumping out shit very fast. The problem was that around about when, the COVID-19 happened, 2020, everyone started streaming shit. And when you start streaming, you need some content. But, these big Disney subsidiaries and, Disney itself didn't have a constant stream of content that you could, stream because they were making mainly movies, and movies would come out once a year, not enough to fill, an entire catalog. It wasn't that expansive in a sense. So they had to just bleed their creativity. I'm using heavy quotes right now, but to make constant shows to pump out. And then, eventually, at a point, there was so much content that like nobody cared to watch it because it wasn't good for the most part. It was okay at best, and at worst, a complete waste of time. It was pretty much kind of very boring. So that's why Disney started, spiraling as far as their content goes, because I'm pretty sure their economics never looked better. But as far as their content goes, it's kind of just sucks for the most part. Most of all of their catalog is kind of boring. Like, I couldn't tell you half the shows that have come out, half the Marvel shows and movies that have come out, and I was really deep into Marvel, and I couldn't tell you the plot of. Actually, I could tell you the plot of the newer Pixar movies, but I'm not gonna. Another problem is that, well, Disney as a whole is very susceptible to I guess public pressure because they're a corporation. They're supposed to make products that reach the widest audience, and I think if they have something to say, some people aren't gonna like it, and if you don't got something to say, well, if you're making a story that becomes a bit boring. Like, for the most part, all of the Pixar movies, earlier Pixar movies, they had something to say, and they said it pretty well. But all of the later movies, like the movies that are out right now, the movie that came out right now, Elio, along those lines, it has nothing much to say. Like, it had a pretty botched, production cycle. Like, the original creator had an idea of making the main character into fashion, and he lives in the military, and it's all macho, and he doesn't really care about that, and so wishes that aliens would take him away. And that is basically what was supposed to happen. The kid was supposed to be queer coded. That was supposed to be the character. And I guess if it was that, I would be a bit interested. But the problem is that, Disney as a company is, looking for numbers, and that kind of shit doesn't do numbers, or at least doesn't do as good numbers. That's why it was kind of very boring. And plus, Disney didn't even talk about it. Like, nobody talked about it. There was no advertisement of it. Like, I'm pretty sure most of you don't even know about this movie coming out. Plus, the art style, it's kind of very boring and isn't very expressive, so it doesn't represent the story as much. Like, Pixar used to make tailored designs for the story, so you could recognize the characters very easily. But that's not you find in the last three movies. Back to what I was talking about. Like, first of all, most people don't really care about Disney because, well, there's not really much to care about. Most of their movies and shows are kind of boring, but some of their better shows, like The Owl House, that came out a couple of years back, they shafted that show because, well, same problem, queer. They got bullied by Christian moms into doing it. And again, a certain audience wasn't watching it, so it had to go. I personally very much liked their older movies, like way back when. The movies they're, currently re-releasing in live action, which looks less real than the original movies. Like, somehow, Lion King looks less realistic than the original cartoons. Like, I don't know how do you do that, but they somehow did it. Miracles, But yeah, I really liked the original movies very much. Honestly, they were very special to me because, well, I basically grew up watching them. I really liked them, and they fascinated me because, as I grew up, I learned how much work it is to animate something, and look back at Disney movies and realize that they were doing this shit by hand. If you ever seen them, draw these, they have a giant stack of paper, and each stack of paper has drawings on it, and they just flip between drawings for referencing the previous drawing, because they have to imitate motion. It's so much work, and they did it. They did that work so that they could produce good movies. And they did produce good movies. Not to say the later Pixar, 3D animation was bad. That was good as well. But, the work that was put into it, the older 2D animations, it showed much more. It's not that I'm praising them for working. Their ideas were original, yes. Even though every single movie was, a Disney princess story, it was original. Yep, sure. It was way more original than whatever they're doing right now because God help their souls. Yeah, it was fun. That was what it was. It was just fun, lively, very. There's a scene in Pinocchio where they take a second to look at the clocks because, well, they animated the clocks gorgeously and they wait on their, animation to celebrate their accomplishment because, well, if you think about it, that's pretty impressive. They're literally making moving pictures by hand and they take their time to show you that what they have accomplished is something to be looked at, something to be valued. And that's what I think has been lost because, well, all of their modern shit is just not that. It's not something to look at, not something to be appreciated, not something to be valued because it's just pumped out at mass because, well, they have to run their, you know, marathon to make the suits happy. And another thing that I find mildly funny is that, one of the heads behind the Pixar movie, they were like, "Don't ask for the movies if you ain't gonna watch 'em, pup." Like a man was fuming because people didn't show up to watch pretty pretty subpar movie. I mean, nobody talked about it. That's another reason, but it's a pretty boring movie from what I've heard. It's not that I've seen it, so I can't really pass judgment. It's a state of things, and to me, it's not particularly a bad thing. That Disney isn't doing that good because there are other studios. Your Sony's, your DreamWorks, which are making beautiful movies like Spider-Man Across to and Into the Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and K-pop Demon Hunter. These movies are probably gonna fill the gap that Disney left by not being what it was. And I assume that probably another generation of people will be growing up on these movies and being like, back in my day, they got the Puss in Boots. Them's were the days. And that's gonna be pretty special because I think these smaller studios should get a bit of spotlight. That's about it. I just wanted to yap a bit. Yeah, and another thing that I talk about at the very end, the reason I haven't been, posting for like a month or so, I got sick. That's really it. Just kind of got sick and didn't want to post after that. But yeah, that's about it. And bye.